8th Street, La Cadena, would be the west side of the barrio, and the east part would be up to 12th Street. The north part would be L Street, all the way to Congress Street. So it covered a good sized area, and we were lucky because we had the park. We had the park, and we spent a lot of time at the park. They call it the Veterans Park now. At the park, we
What was it called before it was Veterans Park? Was it
El
South?
Parque. This is South
But
Colton
was
Park.
it the South Park?
South Colton Park.
Okay.
The South Colton Park. We used to go to El Parque, and we used to the kids that lived in the projects in that part of Congress Street, Pine and Congress Street.
And that was south of where you lived?
That was south of where I
South of
lived.
the park?
Yeah, south of the park, along Pine Street. The park bordered Pine Street, and then it went all the way to Congress Street. So we had a lot of kids in that area, and we would put together a baseball team, softball team, and we'd get together and play some of the kids from the Fifth Street or La Reserva. They would come down to our park and play there.
Was there a ballpark in that area?
The Veterans Park, or the South Colton Park, did have a ballpark, and the ballpark was used extensively. It was built in 1939. The property was given to the city by the Colton Cement Plant, and the Colton Cement Plant provided the property with the stipulation that people from that area would build the park, would provide the watering system for the trees, and then would also plant the grass, and they would plant the trees. And the community came together in 1939 under the direction of Gabe Castorena. Gabe Castorena worked for Parks and Recreation for the city of Colton, and he was instrumental in bringing the community together to build that park. And that park was built there. And then he was also instrumental in forming the Mercury baseball team. And the Mercury used to play on the corner of La Cadena and N Street. There used to be a ballpark, and before that, there was the Garfield School Field, as you well know. But the Mercury's played there, and they, Cape Castorena said, well, why don't we move to the South Colton Park? Because at South Colton Park, there's the diamond, and there's also lighting. So the Mercury's baseball team moved to the South Colton Park, and they had two teams. They had the softball team, and then they had the hardball team that played on Sundays. Yeah.
Now, your team was able to use that facility?
Yes, yes.
So it wasn't sandlot baseball then?
Well, in the barrio on O Street, our street was not paved. Okay, we didn't have curb, gutters, sidewalks. It was not paved. It was a dirt road. So yeah, that's where we played. We started playing
On the street.
On the street, and then the other fun place was half a block from my house on N Street. There was the main thoroughfare for the city people to use that as the dump was located there. The city dump was located 2 blocks, or half a block away from my house.
At the end of O Street?
At the end of O Street. So that was fun too, because when the dump trucks came, maybe twice in the morning, 2 or 3 times in the morning, and we saw them come down O Street to go to the dump, everybody in the neighborhood rallied and followed those trucks, and they waited till they dumped their trash in the dump, and then we'd go through it. You know, reminded me of third world countries, but we'd go through it and select comic books and some toys and some things that we could use at the house. We would collect, old rags that were dumped away, that were dumped, so we can use us and sell it to the junk men on Saturdays. So that was a fun place. That was a great place to be with. And then the river was next to us, Frank. The river provided for us, the Santa Ana River and Idle Creek came together in that area. It provided a wonderful playground for us to play soldier and all kinds of shoot for, kind of our BB guns. We used our BB guns and we hunted lizards. And it was a great place to play soldier. We could build foxholes and go back and forth and use some of the branches that grew along the river as spears. So we would cut them and use them as spears. And then when I was a Boy Scout, we used to meet as Boy Scouts at Garfield Elementary School, and we would have Winnie Pigs in the summer at the river. And we would build a bonfire. We'd roast weenies and marshmallows and play pigs come over the hill, and so that was great fun. Got a little older, Frank, and I mentioned that we used to go hunting with our BB guns and shoot the lizards. And then we graduated 22s, Frank.
Oh.
We had 22s, Frank, and then we had a lot of cottontails in that area, lots of cottontails. So we would be hunting cottontails with our 22 and go all the way to the river, to the Santa Ana River, cross the Santa Ana, and then we had the Cooley Ranch. And the Cooley Ranch had alfalfa, had watermelons, had melons, and we were able to use that area to hunt for our cottontails. So, and then we crossed the Cooley Ranch and go up to Chap Hill, which was just not too far from Cooley Ranch. And Chap Hill had a canal, and the canal was open canal. And
Was that the Gage Canal?
I don't know what it was, but it was a canal that the water was cool, just cool and wonderful. It ran through Grand Terrace, and we would swim there. We would swim, and there used to be a lot of orange grove, a lot of citrus grove, and then on either side of the canal, we used to have peaches that grew. We had apricots that grew, and then of course the oranges. So we had a wonderful time playing in that area.
Now, you did this with your friends. Can you tell me something about who some of your friends were?
Oh, my friends were just our neighborhood kids, you know. We had the Castorenas. Mickey and Eddie were our age, so we used to play with them. And then next to the Castorenas, we had the Castros. In the Castro, we had Peter and Bobby and Mary Lou and Terry and Margaret, and they were also our playmates. And then after that, after the Castro house, we had the Dumb. And then over to the left, we had Arturo Colunga, his brother Manuel, and next to them were the Cisneros. We had Julie, and we had Dolores, and Jesse, and anyway, there was a large family. And then next to them, on N Street, we had the Campas, and Alfonso Campo was about 3, 4, 5 years ahead of us. And when he was in high school, he was a good athlete. He loved sports. Good athlete. He was on the track team at Colton High School, and he thought it'd be a good idea to organize the kids in the neighborhood and teach them everything about track.
Cool.
So here we were, you know, Frank. We would run the 50-yard dash. He taught us how to run and then he'd bring a stopwatch. I don't know where he got the stopwatch. We used to run the 100-yard dash, and then we used to run the 300-yard dash, and then he taught us how to high jump, and he taught us how to broad jump, and everything about being a track runner. And then, he also said, instead of having the oval, he said, let's run around the block, and there'll be one lap. So we started on N Street, and then went over to 11th Street, and then went east on 12th Street, and then made a left turn on on O Street, and then made a left turn on 12th Street, and we wound up making that one lap, which was around the block.
Mm.
So we did that too. So it was great fun. It was
Now,
great fun.
Did that interest you in track and running?
Well, the other sports, it did because he was also a good football player. And I remember he talked about Glenn Davis. Glenn Davis, one of the football players. And then, like I said, the dump was just next to us. So we'd find football shoes at the
Oh.
dump. And then Alfonso would tell us, well, you know, these are football shoes that I found at the dump, and these belong to Glenn Davis. Well, you know, we were gullible enough to believe that that was the case. So, you know, Glenn Davis was one of our heroes back then. So again, Alfonso taught us, he used to organize us, and we played touch football. So we learned about the different positions, and we learned about plays. So anyway, he was a good mentor. He was a good mentor for us. And then also we played at night, Frank. You know, safe community. We used to play hide and seek at night with all the neighborhood kids. We'd go back and forth from one house to another, one property to another, and had a good time. And like we also played tops, los trompos, and we used to play that. We used to play canicas also, marbles. And we had our own favorite chudi that we used to use to be able to get more marbles from the other guys. So it was a great time. And then we made our own toys. You know, the scooters made out of old skates that we used to take a 2x4 that would be the base for our foot, and then we'd take a box, a little lug, and that would be the face of our scooter, and then we'd put handles on them, and we used to do that. Lots of building bicycles from parts that we found at the dump. We used to build our own bicycles, and you know, just be able to get the wagons that were discarded at the dump and bring them home and repair them and little paint. So it was a great time with the kids in the neighborhood. And like I said, around the corner from our place, we would have more kids, and we'd form the baseball team that we needed. So wonderful time growing up in our neighborhood, Las Palomas.
Now, as you grew older, what kinds of activities did you get into, like as you entered high school and grew older?
I played football for Colton High School. I played B football, and we had a great team. We only lost one game that year by 1 point, 6-7. We missed the punt, and Poly High School beat us. So we had a great team, and then I played up to my second year. But after that, Frank, the guys were just too big for me.
Mm.
You know, didn't play junior varsity, or varsity was out of the question. You know, the guys were just too big, and they hit hard, Frank. So I said, I ain't playing with these guys. But I did play softball. I did play baseball for Colton High School up until the end of my junior year, and we had a wonderful team. It was a great team, and that was a good experience too. A little basketball, but I played with the little guys, the D and the C squads. Didn't play the JVs or the Bs or the varsity, but had a great time at Colton High School doing that.
No track?
I tried it, Frank, but it was not me. I tried cross country, but it was not me. The game was just a little too hard for me.
And where did your interest in rebote start?
It started there at the Veterans Park when I was a little guy. We had a handball court. We had 2 courts. One was for the pros, you know, the big guys that were pretty good at handball, and the other handball court was next to it. On the other side of it was for us that were the beginners, the little guys. So that's when I started handball, because the guys that played handball that were very good. And they were kind of our heroes. We wanted to be good handball players with them. And then the other one that gave the impetus to playing handball was the priest, Father Valencia, would come down to the handball court and play there, and we'd watch him play. And he was also very good. You know, he'd pick up his, I don't know what they call that black thing that they wear, what would you call it? His black, the dress. It's not a dress.
Cassock?
I don't know what it is, but he would pick it up and wrap it around his waist, and he'd played handball with us. The other thing is that Father Valencia would bring watermelons to the rebotes. So after the games, we would all eat watermelons with him. Yeah.
Well, what kind of social activities were you involved in high school?
Um, the Boys Forum, I was a member of the Boys Forum. Um, Mostly, they were sports activities, Frank, that we participated in. I wasn't too interested in some of the other activities because, again, getting back to, we talked about culture. And we talked about Grandpa being very Mexican and following the Mexican ways. And then remember that saying that was, no llore. Los hombres no lloran. Remember that?
Right.
Right. So anyway, we were brought up with that type of mentality. So people that dance, hombres no bailan, okay? Okay? Or people that sang, tampoco, los hombres no cantan. And people that played an instrument or a violin, menos, ¿sabes? Menos, no, guys don't do that.
Well, unless it's part of your family's culture.
It wasn't part of ours. It wasn't part of mine. So we didn't do that. And my dad frowned on that. My grandpa frowned on that. So I didn't do those things.
No,
It-
you must have gone dancing, though, and
Didn't know how to dance,
Oh.
Frank. You don't dance because you go to parties, but you stand around. You don't dance. We had the garage parties, Frank.
because you mentioned cruising and out-of-town dances and church jamaicas.
Well, I went to them as a spectator.
Okay.
As a spectator, because the church, had those fundraisers, the Jamaicas, but we were spectators. And when we went out of town, I went with my neighbor, Eddie Castorena, and he would take me to the dances. I was 15, 16 years old. And I just went with Eddie. And Eddie was a good mambo dancer. Eh? And he wanted to teach me how to dance mambo, but it just didn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't me. And some of the other things that along with playing the violin, you also didn't play tennis because that was not a he-man sport. You didn't play tennis, or golf. You didn't golf either. What was that? It was a gringo sport, so we didn't participate in any of those games.
Okay, well, getting back to schools, we kind of skipped over junior high.
Oh, junior high school, Brown versus the Board of Education, the national legislation that came to fruition in 1953, where you integrate the schools. We had a junior high school that was all Mexican, Wilson Junior High School, and the gringos on the other side of the track had Roosevelt, which was their school. And in '53, they closed down. They didn't close down, but they moved us to the new junior high that was being built in North Colton on Valencia.
Colton Junior High.
Colton Junior High School, Valencia and Laurel. And, but it was not completed, the construction was not completed until 1954. But in the meantime, in '53, we went to school at Roosevelt. And that was a toughie, right, because there was not enough space. And I think we had 3 sessions of people coming in. Group one was, I guess, 7:30 or so, or 7 o'clock. Group 2 was at 8 o'clock, and group 3 was at 8:30. I can't remember what the schedule was, but we had 3 sessions, and that was tough. That was tough for everybody, and especially many of us that were disappointed that we were 8th graders at Wilson, and we were not going to be graduating from Wilson Junior High School. And then what we experienced, we lived in a self-contained neighborhood. South Colton was self-contained. The square area of South Colton was 1.3 miles. And it was a self-contained neighborhood where all of us were Mexican. And then we had our own businesses. We had our own grocery stores. We had our own church. We had our own schools. We had our own restaurants. We had our own gasoline stations. We had our own tortilleria. We were self-sustained. We were self-sustained. So well, everybody was the same. But when we moved to North Colton, very different, just very, very different, because it was a different culture. And then many of us had never experienced being with gringos at all. You know, so it was a tremendous, just a different.
Culture shock.
Complete cultural shock. And so anyway, at our school, we were the best students. At our school, at Wilson, we were
Top athletes.
the top athletes. At our schools, we were in ASB, we ran the government, we were the presidents, the vice presidents, secretaries and treasurers. So pretty much, you know, we got that. And then at our school, if we had a play, we were the actors, we were the leading actors. So anyway, we got that experience of being able to be the leaders of our school. Now, when we moved to the new school, we were not the leaders. We were not the leaders. For example, playing a flag football, at our school, at Wilson School, we were the first stringers. At the new school, we were the bench warmers. And even it was true of all sports, basketball and everything, all the other sports. And even in the classroom, we were not the leaders in ASB. We were not participating. In our old school, we were the top students. In the new school, we were regulated to the beginning classes or the dumb classes, you know, the remedial classes. We were in part of the school. So that experience, Frank, I think it was the worst academic school year that I've ever experienced. And then we moved to the new junior high school, Colton Junior High School in 54. Brand new school, beautiful school. But again, there was still that adjustment period where we haven't, none of us, the kids in Roosevelt and the kids from Wilson, hadn't adjusted to that situation. The teachers hadn't adjusted to that situation.
And you only had half a year there at that
Yeah.
school.
And then the community people, they hadn't adjusted to